Hello and welcome to What's the Summary? Tucker Carlson interviews Vladimir Putin. Conducted on February 9th, 2024 by Tucker Carlson. Discussed history of Russia and what led to the war in Ukraine, Russia's relationship with the USA, global economics. Possibility of peace, and UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson derailed a peace agreement. Philosophy on the future of AI genetics. Will Russia release USA reporter Evan Gershkovich? Will hostilities escalate? History of Russia and what led to the war in Ukraine. Tucker starts the interview asking about the war in Ukraine, and Putin takes the first 50 minutes of the interview to go through the history of Russia since the year 862 onwards. This is not compelling listening, but clearly Putin believes he needs to put the whole thing in context. He believes this is fundamental to understanding his position. Tucker tries to redirect the conversation to the current situation, but Putin is quite adamant to explain the history in full, with no gaps. Putin's key points are: Ukraine is part of Russia. Historically, Ukraine is an artificial state. Russia has a history of the West, trying to chisel them away piece by piece. Russia expects NATO and the USA to understand and take into account their history. NATO told Russia it would not expand, then did exactly that 5 times over. Bill Clinton said Russia could join NATO, then you turned on this after getting advice. Russia isn't bitter, it just doesn't feel welcome. Russia has offered to work with the West on joint defense, but got turned down, which resulted in an arms race. The West made way for Ukraine to join NATO. USA and CIA have meddled in Ukraine affairs to cause conflict. A 2014 coup in Ukraine triggered the current conflict. Russia's actions in 2022 were done to stop it. After speaking to France and Germany, he withdrew forces from Kyiv, which Ukraine instantly used to their advantage, threw the agreement away, and prepared for a long military conflict supported by the USA. The president of Ukraine applauded a Nazi in the Canadian Parliament. Putin wants to eliminate Nazis and their ideology from Ukraine. Currently, the Ukraine president forbids peace talks. Russia relationship with the USA. Tucker asks when was the last time he spoke with Joe Biden. Putin says he can't remember, but it was before February 2022. Putin says the USA just needs to stop supplying arms to Ukraine. He believes the USA scare their own people of a fake Russian threat. Putin says that America were the party that blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. He is baffled why the USA wants to spend so much and get into $33 trillion of debt. He believes the elite's mindsets dominate in the USA. The USA have adopted a policy of constant pressure against Putin. Global economics. Putin is confident his country can thrive despite the sanctions imposed by the USA, which he thinks is hurting the USA more than Russia. They currently use 34% of trade in ruble and 34% in yuan. The world is changing, but America, through its wars and sanctions, is trying to keep the status quo, which is a bad decision. BRICS is becoming stronger, and the USA brings this onto themselves. Possibility of peace. When asked by Tucker on peace with Ukraine today, he is quite relaxed and nonchalant, saying he has repeatedly proposed peace, and there is no reason Zelensky cannot negotiate peace. He says a peace agreement was ready to go, but then UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson told Ukraine to fight instead. The war could have been stopped 18 months ago, and where is Boris Johnson now, and yet the war goes on. Philosophy of the future AI and genetics. Putin says his philosophy is simply to protect ourselves. He mentions a famous Russian author, Dostoevsky, as a writer on the Russian soul. Putin mentions AI, Elon Musk's chip, and genetics. He recommends international agreement on regulating these future technologies. Will Russia release USA reporter Evan Gershkovich? Putin says the USA is out of favors with Russia, but it is still possible to solve this problem with special terms agreed with America. Tucker comments the reporter is only young, but Putin says he committed an act of espionage. Will hostilities escalate? Putin says he has already offered to negotiate. Zelensky has refused to negotiate, and Putin assumes the USA have decided this, so it's down to them to change, not him. He also says $72 billion has been provided to Ukraine. Putin says he will support a negotiated settlement just as he did before. So it is up to the West to bring forward peace talks, and it is not down to him to correct others' mistakes. However, he is ready for dialogue. Russia and Ukraine relations will heal eventually anyway. Putin concludes that Ukraine is getting rid of the Orthodox Church because it unifies territory and souls. At this point, the interview concluded.